Ted Crawford is a wealthy aeronautical engineer living in California with his wife, Jennifer. He has a successful career and lives in a beautiful mansion, but his marriage has become distant and routine. One day, Ted discovers that Jennifer is having an affair with a police lieutenant named Rob Nunali. Instead of confronting her right away, he quietly starts planning what to do. One afternoon, Ted leaves work early and drives to a hotel where he believes Jennifer and Rob are meeting. Before going inside, he calls the police station from a payphone and asks for Rob. Ted enters the hotel and spots Jennifer and Rob relaxing by the pool together. Rather than interrupting them, he quietly sneaks into their hotel room. He looks around for a moment, notices the unmade bed, and then leaves without touching anything or letting them know he was there. Later, Jennifer and Rob continue spending time together. Rob suggests going out for dinner, but Jennifer refuses because she's worried someone might see them together. She says she needs to get home before her husband gets suspicious. When Jennifer arrives home, she greets the gardener and walks inside. She's surprised to find Ted already waiting for her, since he usually comes home much later. Ted starts asking if she still loves him. Jennifer avoids answering and heads to the kitchen. Instead, Ted tells her he knows about the affair and even asks whether her boyfriend loves her too. Jennifer tries to apologize, but before she can explain anything, Ted pulls out a gun and shoots her. The gardener hears the gunshot, runs to the front door, and repeatedly asks if everything is okay. Ted ignores him, calmly changes his clothes, burns what he was wearing, and waits inside. The gardener eventually calls the police. Police officers soon arrive at the mansion and question the gardener about what happened. Since Rob is the hostage negotiator on duty that night, he is sent to the scene. Ted calls him through the gate and lets him inside. Rob carefully approaches the house and notices Ted holding a gun. He asks Ted to put it down so they can talk. Ted agrees, but only if Rob also puts down his weapon. The two men set their guns aside and prepare to have a conversation. Rob asks Ted where Jennifer is, and Ted calmly admits that he shot her after getting angry. He then points Rob toward the living room. As Rob walks over, he is stunned to realize the victim is Jennifer, the woman he has been secretly dating. He rushes to her side and checks for a pulse, hoping she's still alive. While Rob is trying to help her, Ted starts making comments that only make him angrier. Rob loses control and attacks Ted. The other officers quickly rush inside, pull Rob away, and arrest Ted. They then check on Jennifer and discover she's still alive. An ambulance takes her to the hospital for emergency treatment. Rob stays behind at the house, still trying to process everything that has happened. Before leaving, he notices Ted looking at him with a small smile, as if everything had gone exactly as planned. Frustrated, Rob tells the investigators to make sure every piece of evidence is collected, so the case against Ted is as strong as possible. At the same time, a young prosecutor named Willy Beachum is celebrating some exciting news. After building an impressive record in court, he has accepted a job at the prestigious law firm Wooten Sims. His coworkers congratulate him, and he's invited to a charity event hosted by the firm's owner. Before he leaves, District Attorney Joe Labruto calls Willy into his office. He congratulates him on the new job, but also asks him to reconsider and stay, saying the office still needs him. Willy appreciates the offer, but explains that he's worked hard for this opportunity and has already made up his mind. Back in his office, Willy changes into the tuxedo his assistant, Mona, rented for the event. Just as he's getting ready to leave, another prosecutor calls him about Ted Crawford's case. Since the prosecutor can't make it, Willy is asked to handle Ted's arraignment. The case sounds simple enough. Ted signed a confession after admitting he shot his wife, and the police have plenty of evidence. Thinking it will only take a few minutes, Willy agrees and heads straight to the courthouse, still wearing his tuxedo. When the hearing begins, everyone expects Ted to plead guilty. Instead, he surprises the courtroom by pleading not guilty. He also tells the judge that he wants to represent himself instead of hiring a lawyer.
I also want to waive my right to counsel and represent myself.
Willy tries to convince Ted that defending himself is a bad idea, especially with so much evidence against him. But Ted doesn't seem interested in listening. Instead, he quietly notices that Willy's bow tie is crooked and points it out. A little embarrassed, Willy fixes his bow tie and continues explaining why Ted should get a lawyer. Ted simply smiles, ignores the advice, and makes another unexpected request. He asks the judge to skip the preliminary hearing altogether and move directly to trial, catching everyone in the courtroom off guard. The judge reminds Ted that if he chooses to represent himself, he won't be able to complain about it later or use it as a reason to appeal. He gives Ted another chance to change his mind, but Ted refuses. Since Willy is leaving the district attorney's office for a new job, he tells the judge that another prosecutor will eventually take over the case. But Ted interrupts and says he wants Willy to stay on as the prosecutor because he likes him. The request surprises everyone in the courtroom. After a short pause, The judge schedules the trial for the earliest available date. As Willy leaves the courthouse, Rob catches up with him. Rob warns him not to underestimate Ted. He explains that he personally took Ted's confession and says there's something unusual about him. Willy thanks him for the warning, but believes the case is already straightforward. Willy then heads to the charity event hosted by his future law firm. There, he meets Nikki Gardner, a senior associate who will also be supervising him. She welcomes him to the firm and introduces him to a few people. Willy is excited about starting this new chapter in his career. While he's at the event, Willy gets a phone call from Detective Flores with some surprising news. The gun recovered from Ted's house was tested, and it had never been fired.
The gun. It's no good.
Willy is confused because Ted never left the house after shooting Jennifer. Police officers were outside the entire time, so the real weapon couldn't have disappeared. Willy tells the detectives to search the house again and check every room carefully because the gun has to be somewhere inside. After ending the call, Willy tries to enjoy the party again, but he keeps thinking about the strange update. He also can't help noticing Nikki, who leaves a strong impression on him. The next morning, Willy drives to Ted's mansion to meet the detectives while they continue searching the property. On the way, someone from his new law firm calls to ask how he'd like his new office decorated and what furniture he wants. Willy is too focused on the case to think about office design, so he tells them he'll decide later. At the house, the detectives explain everything they've found so far. They recovered 4 empty .45 caliber shell casings, but they had all been wiped clean. Ted's clothes had no blood on them because he had already changed before the police arrived. Most importantly, the only gun they found had never been fired. Willy points out that the murder weapon must still be inside the house. Since Ted was surrounded by police and never had a chance to leave, there was no way he could have hidden it somewhere else. Even though the evidence doesn't make sense, Willy is convinced the missing gun will eventually be found. The following day, Willy begins preparing for his new job at the law firm. He meets his new assistant and discusses how he wants his office set up before meeting with Nikki. Nikki brings him up to speed on an important client named Warfield, who is accused of stealing millions of dollars from his own company. The case has already been going on for months, and Willy only has 2 weeks to review all the depositions before joining the legal team in Chicago. She also tells Willy that the firm's owner, Bert, is paying close attention to how he handles this assignment. It's an opportunity to prove himself, but he'll need to learn the case quickly. Willy is excited by the challenge and tells Nikki he's ready to get started. He also explains that he's still finishing a few cases at the district attorney's office before officially moving to the firm full-time, including Ted Crawford's trial. Later that afternoon, Willy notices that Ted has returned all of the discovery files. Frustrated, he goes to the prison to speak with him. When Willy arrives, Ted is as calm as ever. He greets Willy with a smile and casually asks how his wife is doing. The question catches Willy off guard since Ted shouldn't really care about Jennifer's condition. Ignoring the comment, Willy explains that the discovery files were meant to help Ted prepare his defense. Ted simply points out that the prosecution hasn't actually found anything important. He reminds Willy that they still haven't found the murder weapon. Willy says they don't need the gun to prove Ted is guilty, but Ted changes the subject again. He tells Willy that he's been spending more time thinking about Warfield case than this one. Willy is surprised when Ted starts talking about his personal life. Ted reveals that he hired a private investigator to learn everything about him, including how he worked his way through law school, dealt with debt, and built a strong reputation as a prosecutor. Willy is clearly uncomfortable, but he tries to steer the conversation back to the trial. Instead, Ted makes an unexpected offer. He says Willy should switch sides, become his lawyer, and promises to pay him well. Willy immediately refuses. He tells Ted he'll remain the prosecutor until he officially leaves the district attorney's office and reminds him that he needs to submit a witness list before the trial. Ted doesn't seem concerned. He calmly says that only guilty people need witnesses.
You deserve it, kiddo.
On the morning of the trial, Willy arrives at court ready to present his case. His first witness is the gardener. Ciro tells the jury that Ted came home much earlier than usual on the day of the shooting. Not long after Jennifer arrived, he heard a gunshot coming from inside the house. He explains that he ran to the front door and tried to get someone's attention, but no one answered. After getting no response, he called the police. Ciro also says that while he waited outside, he never saw anyone enter or leave the house. Throughout the testimony, Ted barely pays attention. Instead of watching the witnesses, he quietly sits at the defense table, making small sketches on a notepad. After Willy finishes questioning Ciro, the judge asks Ted if he wants to cross-examine the witness. Ted politely thanks Ciro for his testimony, but says he has no questions. Willy then calls one of the first police officers who responded to the scene. The officer explains that when they first arrived, they believed it could be a hostage situation. Because of that, they secured the area, called the SWAT team, and waited for the hostage negotiator to arrive before entering the house. While the officer gives his testimony, Ted continues doodling on his notepad and shows almost no reaction to anything being said.
Well, no, thank you, Your Honor.
Next, Willy calls Lieutenant Rob to the stand. Rob describes everything that happened the night of the shooting, including how Ted confessed to shooting his wife after Rob entered the house. He also repeats the conversation they had almost word for word. This is the first time Ted decides to interrupt the trial. He raises an objection, although he admits he doesn't know the correct legal term for it. The judge asks him to explain in simple words. Ted then reveals that Rob, the officer who arrested him, was having an affair with Jennifer.
Fucking the victim.
The courtroom immediately falls silent. Everyone is shocked by the accusation. Willy turns to Rob, hoping Ted is simply trying to distract everyone, but Rob's reaction tells a different story. Angry that his secret has been exposed, Rob loses his temper and charges at Ted in the courtroom. Other officers quickly step in and pull him away before things get worse. After order is restored, the judge calls Willy and Ted into her chambers to discuss what just happened. Ted calmly explains that he hired a private investigator who found hotel records proving that Jennifer and Rob had been seeing each other. He offers to provide the evidence to the court. He then argues that his confession should not be allowed as evidence. Since Rob had attacked him before questioning him at the police station, Ted claims he only signed the confession because he felt threatened. The judge agrees that this creates a serious legal problem because Rob had both a personal relationship with the victim and physically assaulted the defendant. The confession may no longer be valid. As a result, the prosecution loses one of its strongest pieces of evidence. Sensing that the case has taken a major turn, Ted even asks the judge to release him on bail before Thanksgiving.
Don't push it, Mr. Crawford.
Instead of making an immediate decision, the judge gives Willy the long weekend to find new evidence and schedules the next hearing for Monday.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Back at the district attorney's office, Willy is still trying to process everything when his boss, Joe, calls him into his office. Joe is furious. He says Willy should have discovered Rob's connection to Jennifer long before the trial. He also accuses Willy of being distracted by his new job at the law firm instead of focusing on the case. Without listening to Willy's explanation, Joe removes him from the prosecution team. He says the case has become a mess and someone else will have to try fixing the damage. That evening, Willy attends a party hosted by his new law firm. Nikki tells him she had to convince Bert not to withdraw his job offer after the courtroom incident. After the party, Willy and Nikki spend the evening together, and she invites him to Thanksgiving dinner with her family. When Willy gets home, he finds a package waiting for him. Inside is a box filled with broken eggshells. The message frustrates Willy and reminds him that Ted seems to be enjoying every moment of this. The next morning, Willy goes straight to the district attorney's office and asks Joe to give him the case back. He admits the mistakes made during the trial and takes responsibility for them. Joe warns him that taking the case again is a huge risk. If Willy loses, he could damage both his future at the law firm and his reputation as a prosecutor. Even after hearing the warning, Willy insists that he wants to finish what he started and make sure Ted is held accountable. Seeing how determined he is, Joe agrees to let him continue. Willy's first stop is the police station, where he meets Detective Flores. He says the missing gun has to be somewhere inside Ted's house, because Ted never had a chance to remove it. Flores agrees and organizes another thorough search of the property. After that, Willy visits Rob. Rob's life has fallen apart since the affair became public. His family has left him, reporters are constantly following him, and his career is in trouble. Willy questions him about Jennifer and the affair. Rob explains that he never knew where Jennifer lived, or even her last name. She kept her personal life separate and always arranged for them to meet at the same hotel a couple of times each week. He also says he had no idea Ted knew about the affair until the night of the shooting. Rob tells Willy that Jennifer meant a lot to him and asks him to make sure Ted doesn't escape punishment. Looking for anything that might help, Willy visits the hotel and asks for the security footage from the day Jennifer was shot. He then returns to Ted's mansion, where Detective Flores tells him they searched the entire house again, but still couldn't find the murder weapon. With almost no evidence left to rely on, Willy goes to the hospital to visit Jennifer. Since she's the only person who can directly tell the court what happened, he hopes she might recover. He spends some time sitting beside her bed and reading to her, but the doctor tells him not to expect a miracle. Jennifer's brain injuries are too severe. Even if she wakes up, she may never be able to speak or testify in court. The next day, Willy joins Nikki and her family for Thanksgiving dinner. During the meal, he tells Nikki that he has taken Ted's case back. She isn't happy about it. Nikki explains that she had worked hard to protect his position at the law firm, and now his decision makes her look bad. Willy replies that he never asked her to fight for him in the first place. The conversation quickly becomes awkward, so Willy thanks her family for inviting him and leaves early. When he gets home, he finds Rob waiting outside. Rob is desperate. He suggests secretly planting the missing murder weapon so the police can find it later and save the case. Willy immediately shuts the idea down and tells Rob to go home, refusing to cheat even if it means losing the trial. After Rob leaves, Willy checks his voicemail and learns that the hotel has finished preparing the security footage he requested. Ignoring Nikki's messages, he heads to the hotel, picks up the recording, and takes it to Detective Flores. The footage shows a man wearing a large hat entering the hotel on the day of the shooting. Flores believes it's clearly Ted and says the video proves Ted discovered the affair before going home to confront Jennifer. Willy disagrees. Since the man's face isn't clearly visible, he knows the footage isn't strong enough to use in court. The two argue over what to do next, but neither has a better solution.
He's a psycho we just caught on tape.
Later, Willy gets another call from Rob. This time, Rob claims he has gone ahead and planted the missing gun as evidence. On Monday morning, Willy prepares for what could be the final day of the trial. Before heading into court, he asks his assistant, Mona, to wait outside the courtroom. He tells her that, if needed, she should come in and pretend to whisper that the murder weapon has just been found.
Okay.
When court begins, Ted immediately asks the judge to dismiss the case because the prosecution hasn't found any new evidence. He even backs up his request by quoting the law himself. The judge turns to Willy and asks if he has discovered anything that changes the case. For a moment, Willy considers using Rob's planted gun or carrying out his plan with Mona, but he knows both options would be dishonest. In the end, he chooses to tell the truth. Willy admits that he has no new evidence. With nothing left to support the case, the judge dismisses the jury and finds Ted not guilty.
The defendant is free to go.
Ted walks out of the courtroom, a free man, making sure to taunt both Willy and Rob as he leaves. Willy stays behind, trying to accept what has happened. A few moments later, Nikki calls to check on him and offer some support. Before they can finish talking, a gunshot echoes through the courthouse. Willy rushes outside and learns that Rob, overwhelmed by everything he had lost, has taken his own life. After Rob's death, Willy is left trying to make sense of everything that has happened. Ted, on the other hand, shows almost no reaction. He returns home, puts his gun back in its display case, and seems satisfied that everything has gone according to his plan. The next morning, Ted visits Jennifer at the hospital. Willy is already there, hoping she'll somehow recover. Ted starts talking to Willy and reveals that, as Jennifer's husband, he has the legal right to decide whether she stays on life support. He says he's planning to remove it. Willy is shocked.
And I decide when it gets pulled.
If Jennifer dies, the only witness who could testify against Ted will be gone. His first stop is Nikki's office. Since the issue now involves civil law, Willy asks her to help him get a court order that would stop Ted from making the decision. Nikki refuses. She tells Willy he's become completely consumed by a case that has already ended, and she can't keep risking her own position at the law firm because of it. She leaves without helping him. Running out of options, Willy goes back to the district attorney's office and asks Joe for help. Instead, Joe gives him even worse news. Ted has already obtained a restraining order that prevents Willy from visiting him at the hospital. Joe reminds Willy that Ted is now a free man and tells him it's time to move on. Still unwilling to give up, Willy visits Nikki's father, Judge Gardner, and explains the situation. Although he knows the order may not hold up later, Judge Gardner agrees to help. Willy races to the hospital with the paperwork, hoping he has arrived in time. Unfortunately, he's too late. The doctors have already removed Jennifer from life support. Willy tries to stop the procedure, but is held back by hospital security. A few moments later, Jennifer is pronounced dead. With Jennifer gone, there is no longer any chance that she can testify against Ted. In the weeks that follow, Willy's life falls apart. He loses both his job at the district attorney's office and his position at the law firm. More than losing his career, he can't stop thinking about the case and feels responsible for letting Ted walk free. A few days later, Joe visits Willy at home. He offers him his old job back and encourages him to return to work. Willy thanks him for the offer, but says he's not ready yet. After Joe leaves, Willy starts reviewing the case files again, looking for anything that might have been missed. He spends hours studying the evidence and comparing Ted's case with similar ones. The more he looks into it, the more convinced he becomes that Ted made a mistake somewhere. Hoping to find that missing piece, Willy heads to the police station to meet Detective Flores and review all of the evidence once again. While reviewing the case at the police station, Willy notices Detective Flores accidentally pick up the wrong phone. After a few seconds, Flores realizes the mistake, switches the phones back, and walks away. Watching this gives Willy an idea. At that moment, his own phone rings. It's Ted. Completely confident that he's already won, Ted tells Willy he's leaving for a trip. Before hanging up, he says he's left a little gift for him at the mansion. That night, Willy goes to Ted's house. As he looks around, he finally pieces everything together. He realizes Ted never used the gun that police recovered from the house. Instead, Ted had secretly switched his own gun with Rob's service pistol, while Rob was distracted trying to save Jennifer. When the officers left the house, Rob unknowingly carried the real murder weapon with him. The gun left behind belonged to Rob and had never been fired, which is why the police couldn't figure out what had happened. Willy also explains that once Jennifer died at the hospital, doctors were finally able to remove the bullet from her head, giving investigators the evidence they couldn't collect while she was still alive. The bullet matched the real murder weapon. Thinking he's completely protected by double jeopardy, Ted casually admits everything. He proudly says he planned the entire crime and intentionally set Rob up from the very beginning. He even brags that watching his plan work exactly as expected was the most satisfying part. Willy lets Ted finish talking before calmly explaining that Ted has made one important mistake. During the first trial, Jennifer was still alive, so Ted had only been tried for attempted murder. Now that Jennifer has died, the charge becomes murder, which is a completely different offense. That means Ted can be prosecuted again without violating the rule against double jeopardy. On top of that, the police now have new evidence, including the bullet removed from Jennifer and Ted's own confession. For the first time, Ted realizes he's not as safe as he thought. His confidence disappears as he understands that Willy has figured everything out. Detective Flores and his team arrive shortly afterward and arrest Ted. Sometime later, Ted is back in court, this time with a team of experienced defense lawyers instead of representing himself. Willy is once again leading the prosecution. Unlike before, he looks calm and fully prepared. Willy smiles to himself, finally confident that Ted will have to answer for his crime.